So NVIDIA refreshed the 4000 RTX graphics cards with the Super line, and I got my hands on the Founders Edition 4070 Super at retail price of $599. Now, if this thing is truly 2.5 times faster than the 3090, why isn't everyone buying one? Is it because they're still giving it only 12 gigabytes of VRAM? Probably not. Is it because they're claiming these numbers based on their new DLSS plus frame gen? That one's most likely. But is it all smoke and mirrors? The 4070 Super comes packed with 20% more overall power compared to my old 3070. It has 36 teraflops of shader cores. That's 56% more than my 3070. 82 teraflops of ray tracing cores. That's 68% increase on my 3070. Does this mean I can finally play ray tracing games turned on without DLSS? Well, before we continue, I'm Ed, and welcome to my Tech Talk. Now, NVIDIA isn't getting rid of the 4070 just yet, but should you consider the 4070 Super if you're looking to upgrade your current card? Or should we take advantage of the rich and buy their old and used cards? Let's find out. I do have two other cards with me. They're from the last two generations of the cards. My old 3070, I'll say, from XLR8, which is 8 gigabytes of VRAM, and then my older 2070 from Gigabyte, which is also 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So overall, moving from 8 gigabytes to 12 gigabytes of VRAM should be an overall improvement for me, since I like to game at 1440p, which is where I think this thing's gonna shine today. So let's go over the specs of the new 4070. But remember, these are numbers based on the Founders Edition card for me, so if you're looking at other brands, they might be slightly different, but overall performance should be only about a 1 to 2% variation from brand to brand. As I said before, this does come with 12 gigabytes of VRAM, 7,168 CUDA cores, 368 teraflops of shader cores, 82 teraflops of ray tracing cores, and then 568 tensor cores, or AI cores. All at a max 220 watt power draw. That's only 40 more watts than my old 2070 and the same as my 3070. The 4070 Super only has 192-bit bus compared to the 4070 Ti Super and above having 256-bit buses. So those will have faster data transfer from GPU to CPU, which is not a huge deal, but I wish they would have gave us that since they didn't give us 16 gigabytes of VRAM. The 4000 series overall are getting all the new DLSS 3.5 plus frame gen. It's going to use this one is going to use all 568 tensor cores or AI cores to add extra frames to your games, enhancing frame rates and overall quality. While frame generation also helps in producing higher frames, especially when compared to the older DLS2, it also has the potential to improve the overall response and smoothness of games that are bottlenecked by your CPU, but also can add input latency. Now, enough talking about it, let's get to testing it. Our test rig, aka my PC, we're using an Intel Core i9-13900K, no overclock on it, cooled by the Noctua NHD15, an Asus Prime Z690P motherboard, Wi-Fi, 32 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and all games on a Gen 4 M.2 SSD. Windows 11 and powered by a 750 watt EVGA power supply. All in a nice sleek fractal design Meshify case. All games we benchmarked with or without a built-in benchmark, I turned off any form of motion blur and VSync. I tried picking a wide variety of titles from new to old and from different engines to see how well all these cards are going to handle in different scenarios. We also tested in both 1440p and 1080p since this card is definitely aimed at 1440p, but Steam hardware survey shows 1080p is still the most popular resolution used. In Rocket League, a great esports game title to play, I can't believe the 4070 Super pushed over 1,000 FPS in game. But overall, saw a double performance boost compared to the old 2070. Next on the list, we have Steam's newest bestseller, Palworld. Using Unreal Engine, we can see this game's engine is definitely pushing this card to their limits, as even the 4070 Super can only manage an average of 120 FPS with epic settings on. On to Counter-Strike 2, a game in which the CPU is usually the bottleneck. The 3070 and the 4070 Super aren't that far apart And I think this is due more to day one drivers not being fully optimized yet, because this isn't the only title that we were given numbers we weren't expecting in a sense. And the last game with no built-in benchmark is Baldur's Gate 3, one of my all-time favorite games right now. This title does offer DLSS 2.0, so we ran the game with and without it to see what all these AI cores can do. First, with DLSS turned off, we can see about a 30% increase over the 3070 and almost an 80% increase over the 2070. Remember, these are with DLSS off. Once we turn DLSS back on, the 2070 doesn't seem like such an old card now, but definitely not as high as frame rates as the other one, but all the cards are still 100% playable. Now to the titles with built-in benchmarks. We ran each game 5 times, took the averages of all of them to get the numbers. In Borderlands 3, the 4070 Super had a 40% uplift compared to the 3070 in 1440p, and then 83% against the 2070. Moving on to F123, I think we ran into another day one driver problem, as the 3070 was reporting almost the exact same highs as the 4070 Super, but the averages were still fall apart. But it's not the FPS that caught my eye in this title. Once we turned DLSS and ray tracing on, I kept noticing so much blockiness in the water being thrown up from the cars in front of me, and once I saw it, I couldn't stop seeing it. And that's some of the drawbacks of using DLSS. It can produce these weird artifacting effects. In the newest Forza Motorsports, we ran into a problem. For some reason, the 2070 would not launch the game. I would get to the splash screen, but after that, it would just go black and nothing else. So sadly, the 2070 had to take a DNF on this round, but the numbers speak for themselves on this one. DLS on or off for the 3070 and the 4070 Super on this. And on to the last title, Cyberpunk 2077. I was honestly blown away by the performance of the 4070 Super on this one. I found myself actually watching the benchmark each time, trying to notice any flaws or stutters, but I just couldn't. It had almost a consistent 40% uplift on the 3070, and the 2070 doesn't even stand a chance in the 1440p category, DLSS or not. And once we tried the new frame gen technology these cards are boasting all about, it's no joke. An average 140 FPS at 1440p with ray tracing on. But now the question of the hour, is it worth the price tag of $599? If you were looking to upgrade to a new card, I'd definitely say get the 4070 Super over any of the 4060s due to all the hate they get and having low VRAM to nowadays where we need higher VRAM. If you still have a 1000 series card or even a 2000 series card, I can highly recommend upgrading to the 4070 Super. You won't be disappointed. As for the 3000 series owners, that one is kind of going to be up to you. The 3000 series cards are still great. They still perform great, and with some settings tweakings, hopefully they can still have a chance at playing that GTA 6 once they actually when it comes to PC, I should say. And as for me, I actually came into this review with full intentions of returning the 4070 Super after I was done reviewing it. But after seeing the performance difference and its power, I actually think I might keep it. And that's going to be up for you guys to upgrade or to keep your cards. But thanks again for watching. Let me know if the graphs were good and any recommendations for them. This was my first attempt at so much detail on any review, and I'll see you in the next one.